So the Cricut has cut out our stencil, and this is so cool because now we have a stencil that we can use on our board. And I'm peeling the whole stencil up. The adhesive, the backing is staying with it. So you can see that I have pulled my stencil up here and only the negative remains. Here's the actual stencil, and I'm actually going to use both pieces in this project. But after doing this a couple of times, I would probably recommend that you use at least 3 times on the multi-cut just to make sure that you get everything and so it's crisp and clean. So the next thing we are going to be doing is putting it to use on our board. I have placed my stencils on the board, and one tip that I have learned from working with this material is that if you are not working with something that is flexible, like a pillow, or you need to wrap it around, and the adhesive is not so important to you, leave that backing on. It doesn't matter. It's kind of nice because then you can reposition it, and if you decided to use it for another project or you really liked the design, you can do that, which you wouldn't be able to do if you put it on and use the adhesive. So I have just placed it. I cut it down a little bit to make it a little more manageable in terms of size. And I'm also keeping my frame in mind. I'm using about a 1 whole border all the way around and to make sure that you can see my stencil in all areas. I don't want to lose any of my design. So I'm going to take some of that handy dandy green painter's tape and just secure some edges of my stencil. And I've got the stencil right here and the negative here, and it'll give 2 different effects. So with the same paint as I used to whitewash the entire board, I'm just going to hold down the edges, and you do have to do that if you don't use the adhesive, but at this point, because I'm not using the adhesive, I don't have to worry about that craft paint that's on my board peeling off either. So I would rather just be forced to hold down my stencil instead of worrying about ruining my whole project this far in. And I'm just going to continue to hold this down as I'm working the paint around. Just make sure that you hit the edges really well. If you're a little bit softer in the middle, that's okay. But those edges you really want to hit so that you can see a well-defined stencil. I usually use a variety of techniques when I'm applying the paint just because I don't want it all to be the same. You can use also, for a little bit of faster application, one of those foam rollers on a little mini handle, and that gives a nice effect of varying thicknesses of the craft paint. And as you're going along and finishing, you can always lift up. This is another good thing about not using the adhesive. You can always lift up and see how your design is looking, if you need to be a little bit softer in certain places or harder in certain places. And you work the negative in the same fashion, just around the edges. Our stenciling is completed, and we are ready to move on to the final step, which is putting the dowels in the board and putting the flowers on top of them.